Hey everybody, Mark from Rams Up here. I got Paul Walia on board for another mock draft. What's going on, Paul?
Excited, got up nice and early. I'm wearing my Ram Blues, ready to run the war room.
Yeah, nothing like picking the next great Ram player while sipping on your morning coffee. That's what I'm doing anyways. That's later in the day for you, but for me, I'm just getting rolling here. Um, so this is what we are going to do. Last time we did a mock draft, we traded back in the first round, picked up some extra picks. And as promised, this time we're going to trade up. And what I did, I'm going to share this with you. What I did was, with Paul's help, we kind of agreed on this. We developed an 8-player pod. And these are the types of players, these are the players that we would potentially move up for. So we got the 2 cornerbacks, Terrion Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell. It'll roll back around here for you. We got 2 wide receivers, Adunze and Thomas, the LSU wide receiver. 3 edge rushers, Verse, Latu, and Robinson, and the defensive tackle Byron Murphy out of Texas. So you're good with that, right, Paul?
Yeah, with the qualifier that none of the premier offensive linemen like Fashanu or Fuaga rolled down the list as well. So
yeah,
that's our basic assumption.
Yeah, those were guys that we considered, and we decided that given the investment the Rams have made in the offensive line, they will not be targeting a offensive lineman in the first round. And we could be wrong on that. You know, we could be wrong if they get a shot at one of those a couple of really good tackle prospects, and that's what they'd be looking at, right? And we could be wrong, but hey, this is an experiment, and you know, you may not agree on these players, but again, it's an experiment. This is what we are rolling with, and you may not end up liking the edge rusher we select or the wide receiver we select. And wide receiver is really more about just picking the next great wide receiver, even for perhaps next year, right?
Right, and this is a scenario because I think unequivocally everyone in the Rams Up sort of family here, we all agree that the Rams' best scenario is actually moving back, not moving up.
Right.
We've done so many mocks at this point, and these are just mocks, obviously, but it just seems like there's so much value in the latter first, early second, early third. Right as you hit that sort of pick number 100, and that's when the drop-off starts to happen. So for I would say the consensus basically is there's tremendous value in moving back, but we wanted to illustrate what would happen in a scenario where the Rams move forward. Yeah. And the pod illustration is really more to explain or to illustrate is that let's say the Rams are sitting at 19, and then they take a look at pick 13, which is what we pretty much targeted. We sort of tried to find sort of like a semi-neutral pick. We're going to use pick 13 as our sort of benchmark. And let's say at pick 10, 5 of their pod players are still available. So the assumption is that they're going to theoretically have a chance to get 2 or a shot at 2 or 3 of these players. So that's going to dictate to them, should we move, should we stay, etc. Now, if only one of their pod players are available, then like Mark was saying, they might say, we really, really want this player. Let's make a move. Let's go get that player. So that's where that pod scenario comes in. It gives you our upper and lower limit in terms of that sort of value, return on your investment, so to speak. How much is it going to cost for us to go and get this player? Yeah, and we're going to leave that up to this draft engine. So this draft engine that we're using, we're going to let this draft engine determine what is the value to move down, move up, etc.
And you have to remember, it's a hard point to get across sometimes, but you also have to have a trading partner. And we are going to find a trading partner. We will find one. But in the real draft, they may not be able to. You know, other teams may be thinking right along with them and say, sorry, man, we're not interested in moving back to 19, in which case the Rams would move back. Or they stick at 19 and, you know, again, you might not have a trading partner to move back. But I'm starting to think that, in my opinion right now, getting off on a tangent here a little bit, I think the ideal scenario, as you said, is to move back and then perhaps package one of those picks you pick up in a later pick, pick up a pick in the 14th, in the fourth round, and kind of have picks strewn across the entire draft, although perhaps not a first round pick, or maybe a late first round pick. But okay, enough of that. We're probably confusing everybody, but it'll all make sense when we get this started. I'm going to add this to the stage here. Okay, we'll kick this draft off here, and it's going to go quickly, so I'll try to pause it as quickly as I can. Neighbors, May, Williams, Adunze, Harrison, Daniels, Alt, Turner. Let's pause it.
Perfect.
So Verse is gone, and we'll see who is available. We're up to the 10th pick, and how many players in our pod are left? We have Terrion Arnold, Quinyon Mitchell,
looking for
Byron Murphy, and two. So we have five. We have, I think, 5 guys left. Right, the wide receiver, the edge rusher, the defensive tackle. Fuaga's a guy that.
Absolutely.
Three weeks ago, we would have been jumping all over him, and Quinn and the 2 cornerbacks. So we could potentially. We know that one of the guys we want is going to be available around the Raiders pick. Should we make that trade offer now for the Raiders pick?
Right. So, like theoretically, so we're running this mock league. We're definitely going to move down. But if you look at JJ McCarthy, for those of you in Ram Nation. So JJ McCarthy right now, he just had his pro day. There are like 3 teams that are just salivating over him, apparently. So that's going to help the Rams. If this was a real scenario, that would definitely help the Rams, because what that means is that they are going to sort of be aggressive in trying to get to McCarthy, which is going to push another player down. So we're going to move to 13 for the purpose of this draft. We're going to move to 13 and get the Raiders pick so we can make sure we walk away with one of our prize players.
Yeah, now if you were dead set on, for example, Latu, then you might need to move up to 10 because you're not sure, or you wait it out a little bit. But, it's a crapshoot. So you go ahead and make this trade, and you're going to get Arnold, Mitchell, Latu, or Murphy, or Brian Thomas, one of those guys. Now, in my mind, who are you hoping is there? Who is the guy you really want to be there at 13, Paul?
So if I'm moving down to 13, so now this gets a little bit tougher than we anticipated, because according to this draft engine, they're giving us our left tackle of the future. So something that we had never anticipated, right? So Fuaga or Fashanu. Fashanu, actually, a lot of people. I'm sort of surprised. I read something the other day about Fashanu, some negative stuff they were writing about him, about his technique and everything else. I was just blown away by how somebody could write an article like that about that kid. He's one of the most intelligent players in this draft. His character, everything just shines in his interviews, and his potential is just limitless. Fuaga is my favorite lineman in the draft by far. I just love his nasty demeanor. So for the Rams front office, they would have to consider, do we take this player who not instantaneously makes our O-line better, but also gives us a solution for the future at either left tackle or right tackle? So that would be interesting. But the player that I absolutely, in my opinion, I think is just perfect for the Rams is Iron Byron. I just think that D tackle for the Rams instantaneously makes them better on D.
And he could be there at 19, but
absolutely,
you just don't know. You just don't know. But in this scenario, as promised, we are going to make the trade. And so we are going to offer a trade.
And everybody in Ram Nation knows how much I love Terrion Arnold.
Yeah, right. And in this scenario, when we make these trades, we're going to make it as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
We're not going to favor, if anything, we're going to favor the Raiders a little bit. And that could be the scenario that happens if you want a trading partner and you don't have one. You have to throw in an extra pick and sweeten the pot a little bit. So we are going.
And you also have to look at who's in front of you too. So we got Minnesota and Denver. Both of them are looking for quarterbacks, and both might be in that JJ McCarthy dual mode. So they're obviously not going to be good trading partners for us, because they're looking to move down, not necessarily looking to move back.
So I'm thinking, let's start with this, throw in the 99th pick overall. Was that a good start?
So let's see if we can get them to take our third for next year. Let's see if we can keep a mini. Yeah, let's try it that way. Let's see third for next year. What happens? Oh, well, I mean, come on. That's just a gift at this point. For a third, they're ready to give up 6. All right, so Mark, let's make this somewhat realistic. Let's do third for next year and then give them a 5th for this year. How's that sound?
Okay. Let's see. Which one?
They're consecutive. Let's make it a challenge for ourselves. Let's give them 154. Did it move the needle at all?
Still slightly in our favor.
Wow.
We could throw in one of these 6th-round picks.
Give them Mr. Irrelevant. Let's see if that does anything.
Our 7th-round pick?
Yeah. Let's give them that one too. All right. It's not going to move the needle. All right, let's run it like that.
Oh, let me start over. I accidentally, so we had the 3rd round. Oh, that's it. So
and don't forget the 5th. We gave them a 5th.
The 5th, 154. That's pretty close. So we're giving up 3 picks in this draft and a 3rd round pick next year to move up 6 spots.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's a little bit much when you take a look at it. Somebody say it's too much, but when you're moving real time in the draft, we just want to give ourselves just a realistic depiction of what's going to happen, just so that it can be illustrative to the audience, the advantages of moving up and moving down. So let's see what happens.
Okay, so we're going to have the 13th pick, and we'll reject these trades.
We're going to reject everything. And here we go.
I just saw they were trying to trade the 19th back to us, I think.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Look at that.
So you got some choices here.
Look at that.
And I'm going to let you make this pick, but I think I know which way you're going to go.
All right, so let's talk this through, Mark, right? So for Ram Nation, let's take a look if we had stayed in 19. Latham would have fallen to us, another great lineman, Brian Thomas, right? Theoretically. Obviously, we don't know what would have happened. Things change. So who's available? Let's talk it through. Terrion Arnold, a cornerback, instantaneous starter. Cornerbacks average about what? 14, 15 million just to get them at that elite starter range or even higher. I don't want to use the word elite. We'll just say starter range in the NFL because elite starter range, you're talking about like Snead, which is going to be like ridiculous numbers. So Terrion Arnold, instantaneous starter corner available to us right now. We're not going to be able to find somebody in free agency at that dollar amount. So that's one advantage. Fashanu, left tackle, considered to be the most prized possession in the NFL, right? Higher even than edge rusher. So there you go. You have Byron Murphy without question, the top D lineman in the draft. Would you agree, Mark?
Yeah, well, I think it's between him and Newton. And from my reading, the consensus seems to be that Murphy is more of a he's going to get to the quarterback more.
They're like a 1A, 1B. They all have their positives, but they're definitely in the ballpark. So it's down to those two, right? A 1A, 1B scenario. Everybody loves Latu. The kid plays at UCLA. Think about the marketing value. Here we go. There's your edge rusher, right? So there's another positive. Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver from LSU, the kid they call the other wide receiver opposite neighbors at LSU. The size to speed ratio is just bananas on this kid. So the Ram War Room is just like they're probably in a knockdown brawl with each other about who to take. So we have to stay calm, Mark. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which way do we go? Do we build? Do we do like the Rams did previously with big Orlando Pace, right? Bring in that left tackle and just pencil him in. I mean, this kid obviously needs time to develop. We have the luxury of letting this kid watch and learn and build and then pencil him in and watch how Alaric Jackson does also in even more depth for our O-line. What are your thoughts?
Well, you can't have everything. And I think our offense is in pretty darn good shape, which is why I removed offensive linemen from my 8-player pod. And yeah, you can tell me I'm crazy, but our defense just needs so much help.
So much work, right?
Right.
So your thought process is, who is the player We move down to 13, and this should be the rationale, Ram Nation. Who is the player that if we press the button right now, we're going to pencil them in or him in, and that person is going to be able to deliver from day one? When you ask that question, Mark, what's the answer in your opinion?
It is Murphy. Latu, you take edge rushers to the NFL level. It takes a little time. It really does. It usually does. He's going to be an impact player at some point, but on day one, and people say you don't draft for need, and I get it, but when you have 3 or 4 players that are pretty much dead even with each other, and the fidelity, it goes to the third decimal point as who's better, who's better among the 3 players, you draft the guy that's going to help you right away, and to me, that's Byron Murphy.
And we apologize, Ram Nation. Mark and I love stats, so we're stats guys. So not stats like football stats, but statistics guys. So yeah. So the other question is Terrion Arnold? Can he deliver from day one? Is the impact at corner enough to push him to the top of our list?
Well, potentially, he would be my second choice. Man, that's a tough call. I feel like the Rams have done a pretty good job over the years of finding defensive linemen that can just get it done. But that's when they're playing alongside Aaron Donald. Right. Is Kobe Turner that guy now? Obviously, he's not going to be the legend that Aaron Donald is, but he's a pretty darn good defensive tackle. Can you build around him? And then you put Terrion Arnold opposite Darius Williams. I don't know. I really don't know. So that's why you're making the pick and not me.
So Mark and I are simulating what would happen like in a draft room, and this is exactly what would happen. So honestly, the other question is in the Rams scheme, right? In the Rams scheme, if the Rams are going to stick to their 3-4. So just so that everybody knows, 99 Problems was really playing in a scheme that's probably not best suited to a 3 technique, right? So one thing is that the Rams D-line definitely needs to get bigger, definitely needs to get tougher. However, this kid is an anomaly. Byron Murphy, Iron Byron, is an absolute anomaly. What he did on tape at Texas, what he showed at the Combine, unbelievable. This kid has, for his size, that size and explosiveness package and that ability to penetrate. No, I mean, obviously, no one is in the same category as 99 Problems. But I just think for the Rams to move forward in continuity and for their defensive scheme, I think Byron Murphy makes the best sense. This is something we were hoping would happen. Let's pull the trigger on Byron Murphy.
Yeah, and the downside of this is Murphy might have been there at 19, but we felt it was important enough just to make sure.
Right, and here's the other scenario. The depth at corner is significantly higher than the depth on the D-line in this draft, particularly in the top end of the draft. So that's another a significant component of this decision, is that after the first maybe 5 players, and you're talking about guys that are like, we talked about our buddy Ruka Roro, and we talking about guys like Chris Jenkins, things of that nature. When you start looking at those type of guys, there are not too many of them at the top end of this draft, even early second round. So for my opinion, Byron Murphy would never have made it to 19. So I think this was the right move.
Okay, well, go ahead and make that selection. And now we're going to get to the 52nd pick here shortly. And now we don't have our second pod developed. I believe what the Rams do is they have a pod circled around that 52nd pick as well.
Yep, for each pick.
And we haven't gone that deep yet. But
and we're going to stay away from all subsequent trade offers.
Yeah, so and there's a possibility that the Rams would potentially use that 52nd pick to move back and pick up a 4th round pick, but we'll keep it simple this time around.
Right. And if you look at some of the Rams picks, 209, 213, 217, that's a nice package to move inside of that top 200 or even getting something close to the 175, right? I always believe you want to draft in the top 175. If you can do that consistently, you're going to build a very strong roster.
Yeah, they still have the 4 picks in the top 100.
So Mark, take a look. We were just talking about this person. Take a look at number 55. What did we just say?
Yeah.
Chris Jenkins. So let's slide down. Let's take a look. Let's see who's available. And we got Rook. So, Ram Nation, take a look. So, in this second round, because after this, now presenting to us, so as you could see, the general manager Mark over there, right? We got to take a look at now what is presenting themselves to us. We have 2 premier D linemen, right? Do we go all in on our D line and make that the strength of this defense, right? Build this 3-4 in more of a 3-4, an aggressive 3-4 front. Look, what do we have on this defense right now, Mark, in your opinion? Who are the guys that we know can play from day one? We know we got Ernest Jones, Mr. Dependable, right? An emerging superstar. Even Aaron Donald said it. Aaron Donald said when he walked away, he turned to 53 and he said, I'm handing this defense over to you, right? I don't think there's a bigger vote of confidence. What do you say, Mark? So we know 53 is there in the middle, right? We got Brian Young, a player that they invested in, that we are still trying to determine, is he an every down pass rusher? Is he a rotational player? But we have him on one side. We have the conductor. We know the conductor is a given up on the D-line. Now we have Byron Murphy. So do we invest in another D lineman and really make this an area of strength? What are your thoughts?
You know, you can make a strong argument for that because it's still not a strong unit, not a lot of depth. I mean, the second level guys are just okay. You know, Darius Williams is a starting corner, and I don't see any cornerbacks. But the first thing I would do is let's look at the cornerbacks real quick. You know, there could be guys that you like available in the 3rd round, and I think there are. And like
Max
you said,
Melton.
cornerbacks a little bit deeper.
Let's take a look at edge also. There you go. All right. So we got Jonah Adisa, 2 players that we all like. We love Jonah Ellis, right? Like my cousin Vinny, he plays for the Utes, right? The 2 Utes. So we have Jonah Ellis and Adisa Isaac, 2 great, phenomenal edge rushers. Do we grab our edge rusher now to make sure we got enough sizzle on this defense? Or do we wait and see who falls to 83? Your thoughts?
You know, I don't know. I'm not keen at edge at this spot in the draft. I still think the Rams could make a move for a veteran.
Okay.
And I like
Clowney, Jay Clowney.
Yeah, and just having all these young edge rushers, you know, I don't know, man. It's still a little bit of a crapshoot when it comes to the edge. I think, yeah, I mean, that's true of every position, but I think it's most true with edge, I think, and quarterback.
The player that jumps out at me, Mark, right now, right off the top, because we're talking about replacing 99 problems. And one of the things that we're replacing is not just that physical aspect of it, the body. It's the attitude, the approach to the game. And both these players, Chris Jenkins and Rook, bring that to the table. Ruko. So here's the way I would go. In my opinion, look, they got Rook at 61. Where do they have Jenkins at 55? I mean, they're pretty much comparable. Michael Hull, by the way, is another great pick. Can really get after the quarterback. I'm thinking that based on what I saw, Chris Jenkins played in a defense that was really, really geared up to stop the run. And a lot of people say his size was a detriment. I watched this kid, his knowledge of leverage, his hand usage. He was just unblockable, man. And the way he played in the gaps. At the NFL level, they're going to cut this kid loose. They're going to say it's okay to go after the quarterback. I think his sack number is going to go through the roof. Rook is the bigger player, so that would give the Rams a little bit, you know, Chris Jenkins is the same body type as the conductor and as Byron Murphy, right? So Are we just drafting another player in that same body style, or do we go with Rook, who's a much bigger player but also has tremendous potential?
Yeah, and I think one thing that's important to note is that the signing of Darius Williams and Cameron Curl really gives us some additional flexibility. We're not feel like we're desperate to draft a cornerback and a safety at this point. And I think there are decent ones later. But to answer your question, I really don't know. You know, you got the big guy, Bobby Brown. He's really the only big defensive lineman we have. and but Chris Jenkins sounds like it could be more of an impact player.
Absolute
Yeah.
monster, right? Well, I'd say let's go with KJ. Let's go with Big Chris.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a diversion. We're doing something we haven't done. I mean, I think a few weeks ago we weren't drafting defensive linemen at all. I don't think, and now we're drafting two. Right. But it's going to make it, definitely going to make this defense give us another position group that we can kind of say, okay, this group's good to go. So we'll go ahead and make that
closed,
pick.
Right. And think about this also, Mark. How do we help our pass rush? Yeah, from the edge. But now we can help our pass rush from the interior. And when the Rams have to get to the quarterback, what do we got? We got Murphy, we got Jenkins, and we got the conductor. The Rams like to come with you with 4 and drop 7. I don't know. That looks like a good group to get after it.
Yeah.
Bunch of dogs.
Okay, so we probably need to look at, what do you want to look at here? Let's look at all to begin with.
There you go. And now we got to take a look at edge. No question about it. So we got 2 dogs. We got Kong in the middle, Byron Murphy. We got Jenkins. Let's see if we can add some more nastiness to this defense. And there we go, Mark. We get to take our pick. Do we go with Jonah Ellis or do we go with Adisa Isaac? Listen, we've drafted Adisa Isaac in every draft thus far. We know we love this kid, right? Kid is from Brooklyn. We know he can play. We got 2 corners left. The corners that I like, Kyrie Jackson and Cam Hart. You know what, Mark, who do you like between Ellis and Isaac? Who do you like?
You know, I was not familiar with Ellis until someone commented on one of our recent drafts that we need to draft this guy. I know you have been a big fan of Adisa Isaac, not knowing, well, they're 77th and 78th on this board. Is it really just flip a coin? I'll defer to you. I don't know a whole lot about either of them, other than the fact that you like Isaac and some of our viewers on the channel like Ellis.
I love Ellis as well. I think Ellis is another great pass rusher. The differential in size, definitely Isaac is a bigger player. Jonah, they both play like their hair's on fire. Love it. They both play with intensity. Both are very, very physical. I think Jonah Ellis right now, I would say, has a slight advantage in the development of certain counter pass rush moves, but I would give Isaac the edge in terms of just overall physical ability. We've done Isaac so many times. Let's take Jonah Ellis.
Okay. What's the weight on him? You said he's a little, not quite the same size. Is he in the 240s?
I always go by what they had at the combine. So they had Jonah Ellis at 240 plus. Yep.
Okay. All right. Jonah Ellis is a selection, beefing up this defense.
Take a look at that. Can we get after the quarterback and play the run now? I think so. Look at that, man. Woo!
Now, probably going to have some safeties and cornerbacks to choose from.
Let's
here.
Take a look at corner. Let's take a look at corner. We could have not, and there it is. Ram Nation, everybody smiling from ear to ear. Who is the cornerback that fits our system? The kid who transferred from Alabama, who comes down and hits like a ton of bricks, who knows how to make big plays. Has to get a little bit more discipline in the system, but in our system, he's going to look like $1 million. Darius Williams, Kobe Durant. I think Kyrie Jackson fits right in there. And there you go. I think we should pull the trigger. And I know Chris Abrams-Drain is there, but I think we need to get a little bit more size at corner. Our corners have to be bigger. They have to play physical against the run, and they have to be able to crash down. And, one thing about Darius Williams that, throughout his career, people have said you can run on his side. He's not the most physical corner when it comes to supporting the run. So I think Kyrie Jackson gives that cornerback room that dimension of size that we really, really need.
Before we make that selection, I just want to real quickly check on the wide receiver
receiver.
Just curious here.
We have an offensive coordinator in the room, folks.
Well, I just know McVay is going to
absolutely.
And I think he's also, there are some running backs that I really like, and it looks like the gentleman from Notre Dame is gone.
And look at Blake Corum just sitting there, man. Everybody is sleeping on that kid, man.
Yeah.
What a great running back. By the way, Ram Nation, part 2 of the Rams Puka Power Picks. We're going to do that segment probably in a week or so right before the draft to let everybody know who are our final selection. And shout out to all the everybody in Ram Nation that sent the comments that really enjoyed the Power Picks and the fact that we did it before the Combine so that they had some people to circle on their list. So we're going to give our final list, the players that we think are the most undervalued and have that mindset. And there is a wide receiver. One of the reasons I'm not too worried about wide receiver, there is a player that is completely undervalued. His name is Bub Means from Pitt. To pay homage to 99 Problems, I say the Rams wait a little bit, take this kid later on in the draft. Bub Means, wide receiver from Pittsburgh, an absolute beast who ran a sub 4.5 at the Combine.
Okay, but we're taking Jackson here, right?
Let's do Kyrie Jackson. There you go. Look at that.
We've got the 2 defensive linemen, a cornerback, and an edge rusher. Cannot complain. And
how do you feel about our defensive unit right now with a couple youth, as going back to my cousin Vinny, the youths walking in and starting from day one?
Yeah, and sometimes we forget about guys like Darion Kendrick, Kobe Durant, Trey Tomlinson.
Yeah,
they haven't really delivered yet as much as we'd like, but they've had their moments. Well, not Trey Tomlinson quite yet, but there's some potential there. We could get a surprise out of one of those 3 guys.
And when does familiarity with the system really pay off, Mark? Year 2, year 3, that's when it really starts to pay off.
So what do we got here? We're all the way down to the 155th pick. Should we go ahead.
Ram Nation, take a look. So the residual effects of our trade down, have we really felt it yet? Probably not. We're still in great shape. We're still getting the players that we want. Oh boy, here we go. Now we can have a little bit of fun.
Let me get Sione Vaki off the screen here. There you go.
Yeah, let's get Sione Vaki. So I promised Mark I would not draft Sione Vaki anymore.
No, you can. I have no problem with you selecting him.
So let's change it up a little bit, right? We know the players we like, but let's shout out some other players. So Bo Limmer is a definite possibility here, right? He's an interior lineman, a center guard. More accomplished at center in terms of games started. Very physical player, decent technique. Where does he play? Arkansas. Is that in the SEC, Mark?
Yes, it is.
So he's already high on my board. There are a couple of players I want us to spend a little bit of time on, if you don't mind, if you want to scroll down just a little bit. So Javion Cohen from Miami, another great guard. But this kid right here, James Williams, that's kid from Miami. A lot of teams want to play this kid at that hybrid linebacker safety position. And now let me tell you why, Mark. He is 6'5", 220 something pounds. He performed really well at the Combine. Not great. By the way, a lot of the Miami players did not, for whatever reason, perform well at the Combine this year, which is shocking because they used to own the Combine, right? We know like Ed Reed and those guys, they used to just own the Combine. So James Williams is 6'5". He's a safety. He's a 220 something. Hits like a ton of bricks. Knows how to play the ball. He would be a great hybrid player for a team that is going to jump into a lot of nickel packages. And he would be absolutely phenomenal on the Rams. I absolutely would endorse this player coming to the Rams. I love his physicality. I love his ball skills. And that ability to play that weak side linebacker in those, nickel packages, I just think would be phenomenal for the Rams. So that's just my opinion. I do think you can't ignore the trenches. The Rams signed Noteboom. They have their starters in place. But, Mark, do we have enough depth? I say let's go Bo Limmer.
Where'd he go? The interior offensive lineman.
He can back up 3 positions, center both guards. I think that's just invaluable at this point. And to get him at 155, and that's why we got the A+. Absolutely.
Yeah, they like that pick. See, are we already there? No, not quite yet. So we got 1 offensive lineman. Positions to think about. Again, I know everybody criticizes drafting for need, but if you want to talk about it for a second, I'd say linebacker, safety, potentially running back, wide receiver.
So let's take a look. I agree with you 100%. So right off the bat, we were just talking about that linebacker fit in a previous mock. A player that not a lot of people, definitely a Puka Power pick, is Teron Hopper, the kid from Missouri. Now, Missouri had a really nice roster this year, and they really had a couple of players that I thought were really, really interesting. Teron Hopper being one of them. Mark, if you don't mind, I just want to check on our wide receiver for a second. Let's see that Puka Power pick. Let's see if he's still out there. I'm sure they already grabbed him. They already did. Let's take a look. Scroll down. Scroll down.
Who are you looking for?
He's Bub Means. Yep, I think they took him already. Yep. But Ram Nation, keep an eye out for that kid, Bub Means, from Pitt, where 99 Problems came from. That kid is going to be – so that Bo Limmer pick could have been a Bub Means pick if we needed it to be. But I don't think we're necessarily hurting a wide receiver just yet.
Yeah, that's just a bonus addition, a wide receiver.
Absolutely. And we love our wide receiver coach and staff, and we know they've developed wide receivers, so we're not too worried about whoever we bring in. We know that they're going to do a great job. Let's click all. We definitely want to get a dynamic wide receiver into the room at some point. I'm going to say let's go with that theme, Mark, that we've developed. Let's make our defense even better, more athletic and nastier. That more flexibility against the pass, great coverage linebacker, loves to play downhill, loves to hit. I say next to Ernest Jones, I would love to see Teron Hopper.
Okay, that's the pick. And at this point, we will have added a linebacker, 2 defensive linemen, an edge rusher, a cornerback, and he's another SEC guy. But, you know, I got to point out, talking about the SEC, it happens every year in the basketball tournament. Through the first round, what we now today know as the Pac-12 was 4-0, and the SEC I think was 2-5. So
Mark takes my SEC references. Mark takes my SEC references personally. Just want to shout out Malik Neighbors, who at his interview, within 3 sentences, when they were asking, do you feel you're the #1 wide receiver of the draft? He goes, first thing he said, well, I play in the SEC.
Yeah.
He said it out loud. And you know what? You got to give the kid credit, but, you know, Malik, you got to be a little bit more that's a shot at to the audience out there.
That's a shot at Marvin Harrison and Rome Odunze, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. And Malik, you know, he's that kind of dog. But one thing I will say about Malik Neighbors, there are some people who said his interviews, although he was very confident, came across as a little abrasive. So, I mean, obviously he's got his agents and everything, so he might want to tone it down a little bit. I did rewatch his interviews, and I could see where somebody could take it that way. I just think he's like Michael Irvin. When I listen to him, I hear Michael Irvin. The kid's got confidence to spare, man. He really does. But I agree. He might want to tone it down a little bit. But he's got confidence. He feels he's the top dog, and that kid is as talented as they come when it comes to wide receiver. All right, let's take a look at 209, Mark. How you feeling so far?
Well, let's take a quick look at this. We got 2 defensive linemen at the top of the draft. I feel like our defensive line group is solid. Maybe, you know, there'll probably be an undrafted rookie that we add as well, or maybe we bring in a veteran to compete for a starting job. Our cornerback room with Kyrie Jackson and Darius Williams on board. We got the 3 young guys. Maybe we still add a veteran, but I'm squared away with our secondary. Maybe we need to add a safety, though. We got the edge rusher. I think we should be done with edge rushers unless there's someone late in the draft that we just feel like slipped and is great value. No more offensive linemen. I don't think you're going to find our next great tackle at this late in the draft. So what is left? Wide receiver, safety, running back. There you go.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what we got out. They still got out there. Listen, every pick is potentially an all-pro pick. Let's see who we got out there. Let's organize and prioritize, as they say. Let's do it, right? Mark and I are systems guys, right? Organizational psychology at the core.
Yeah, and I didn't mention quarterback, and right now, Dresser Wynn is our backup quarterback for the first 2 weeks of the season.
You're not,
and that's a bit of a dilemma.
You're not saying that with
well,
confidence.
I don't, Dresser Wynn could, he may be the guy. He may have to be the guy.
Yeah.
Now, it could be Stetson Bennett. There's, some videos floating around of him working out and such, and that'd be great if it was. But
then Jimmy G takes over after 2 games. So
right. And I know you're a big Jimmy G fan. Your jersey's on the way, by the way.
Exhale. You owe me 2. You owe me 2-2, and you owe me Jimmy G.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be just great if Jimmy G hit 2-2 for a game-winning touchdown at some point this season?
That would cut me deep. All right, let's take a look at what we got, Mark. Let's take a scroll down a bit.
Scroll down?
Yeah.
Oh, there's you, Mustafa, the safety.
There's that safety we love.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard my most recent pod. I think it was the most recent one. I talked about the safety group, and I talked about. I think my angle on the safety group, I'll just summarize it real quickly, was you either bring back John Johnson and add a guy like Mustafa or Sione Vaki. If you don't bring back John Johnson, maybe you spend a 5th round, 3rd round pick on a safety, something like that. But Mustafa, we're already to the 209th pick, so Mustafa would be a guy you maybe got to start considering.
Or that kid from Oregon, right, Evans. So let's do by position groups. How about this? Let's first take a look at wide receiver. Let's see what's out there, because they're flying off the boards right now. Okay, here we go. So we got a couple of. I know all the USC fans would love to see Taj play with the Rams. Undersized player, but man, the kid is electric. Cornelius Johnson, to me, in this list right off the bat, is the one that's most interesting. Cornelius Johnson really didn't blow up at Michigan. Was always that guy, was just like a solid contributor, sort of quiet in his demeanor. A lot of people actually compare him to Van Jefferson in terms of his demeanor. I don't know if that's necessarily a positive or a negative. But Jordan Whittington is another one from Texas. He runs like a running back, man. Really has a lot of untapped potential. I think those two, Griffin from Mississippi State, a lot of people like him as well. So let's take a look. Anthony Gold is the player that got a lot of hype. Some people don't like him because of his when he was at the combine, they said his arms was like under the particular benchmark for wide receiver in terms of catch radius. So that would limit his effectiveness. So let's scroll down a little bit more wide receiver.
I should mention that for Ian's sake, we should have paused the draft and see where he's a big fan of Keon Coleman, right?
Oh, I love Keon Coleman. Yeah, he and I are in the same mind in terms of Keon Coleman. If the Rams trade back and they get a couple of late picks in the 1st round or even an early pick in the 2nd round, if they sit back and just snatch this kid, Neon Keon is going to make all his haters. He's just going to shut them up by week 5, man. Yeah. This kid can play football. And I say this when it comes to wide receivers, forget the 40. Look at the gauntlet. Watch the gauntlet. Keon Coleman had the fastest time at this year's gauntlet, Mark. Forget what he did at the 40.
Right.
The 4.6, I know it scared everybody away. Keon Coleman, let me say this again, Ram Nation, had the fastest time at the gauntlet. Okay? And we saw what Puka did as well at his 40 time. He was a 4.57. So Keon Coleman, to me, I think is one of the biggest, I would say the most underrated wide receiver in that top tier of wide receivers.
And he can block too, right? Great blocker.
Vicious blocker, and in the red zone is just unstoppable. Okay, route running needs a lot of work, but that's what the Rams are there for. Their coaching staff have developed. Look at what they did with King Cup. All right, so we see wide receiver not exactly knocking us out of our chair. Let's take a look at that safety group. Mustafa, oh, wow. They have just taken all of the safeties off the board. Wow, they have flown off the board. So Mustafa really is
Let's
our
look at
last
running
one.
backs real quickly. I know there's
Isaiah Davis, the obligatory South Dakota State pick that I make every draft, or try to.
So right now, I don't know. You're thinking, well, Isaiah Davis, Mustafa, anyone else that you're thinking about here?
Can you take a look at? Let me take a look. Click at corner, because there are a couple of safeties. They actually list them as corner. Oh, there you go. So let me share my thoughts. This kid, Marcellus Dial from South Carolina, is really more like in our system, would probably be able to play both cornerback and safety. Marcellus Dial is tailor-made for the Rams system on D. Love this kid. Very underrated player. Would, as long as like we've said, in that zone, as long as the ball's in front of him, this kid's he's gonna come down, he's gonna hit, he's gonna make a play on the ball. Like this kid, we see Devonshire there. We've talked about him before. Mark, take a look. Also, we're who do we got at edge? Sometimes there's underrated edge players that fall. There we go. There it is. All right, Fatui from Washington, another good pick at 178. Xavier Thomas at 187. So we got Hoyt, Jonah Ellis, Byron Young. We could add another edge here. And so, Mark, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? Can you hit linebacker? Linebacker. Any edge players?
We also have, don't forget, O'Shawn Mathis and Nick Hampton.
O'Shawn Mathis, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. So I'm okay with edge. Let's take a look at, Mark, what are your thoughts? What are you feeling? Safety?
Yes, safety and running back would be my choices. I think running back is really just for insurance.
Yeah. Let's take Mustafa, because at 181, he's not going to be there. Let's take Mustafa. What do you think?
No, that's fine. And the 3 straight A pluses. We like the grades when they're good, and when they're bad, we're like, oh, they don't know what they're doing.
Mustafa's definitely, I don't know, tailor-made to, I don't really feel like he's a deep center fielder type. However, he does give them some flexibility, can play in the box. He's physical. So I think he would fit in that system. We know Yeast loves to play that dime spot. That's when he looked best. We know Curl is just Curl. He's just amazing. We know Lake is a beast and a star in the rising, right? Playing that star. We'll see how they utilize him this year. All right. Let's take a look. Oh, Mark, look at the offensive coordinator. He's clicking on quarterback already. Look at him.
Yeah, there's really, the only reason you draft a quarterback at this point is if there's someone that you think can come in and back up Stafford week 1 and 2. And I don't know. I just don't know.
You know what I love to do is let's go back to all. Let's say who we got for value-wise. Let's go to all. And here we go. The last two. What do you got? 2 more picks, Mark?
Yes, 213 and 217.
All right.
Almost
let's make them count. Let's see what we got.
Oh, all right. And there it is. Still there.
Isaiah Davis. There we go. The best stiff arm in all of college football. Watch this kid. Yep. Isaiah Davis. Don't even have to scroll.
I like this draft is very well rounded. We've skipped a couple positions, but still on the defensive side, especially, I think we've really nailed it.
And Mark, do you want our developmental wide receiver?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. What do we have here?
Let's take a look. And I think we're going to go with Cornelius Johnson.
Okay. Where was he?
Right.
There he is, out of Michigan.
Here we go. We got 2 national champions on the team. There we go. He's got length. He's got speed to burn. Has to work on routes. Was really only was really used to take the top off the defense. But I think he's got a lot of potential. So I think that would be a solid pick with the wide receiver. All right, let's take a look. So in your opinion, Mark, did trading down enhance our draft enough to justify what we gave up to get Byron Murphy? What are your thoughts?
Trading up, you mean? Every draft is different, but I don't have a problem with how this draft turned out. 1 less player, but I'm happy with it. If you told me that if we didn't trade up and we weren't going to get one of our 8 guys, let me turn that back on the ticker. The guys we identified, we wanted, absolutely had to have one of these guys. Then yeah, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Now if you're at 19, you have to settle for someone. You trade back. I mean, you make it work either way. It's
Exactly.
I think that's what Les Snead and Sean McVay are so good at is just adapting, and they've done a really good job over the last few years, I think.
The way I analyze this one, Mark, and you tell me your thoughts, and I'll go through from top to bottom. And Ram Nation, feel free to chime in as well. Number one, Byron Murphy. Did we walk away by trading down? Did we get, and people can argue the point, and that's okay. Did we get one of the top 2 interior linemen in the draft? Yes or no?
Yeah, in my opinion, he's the best.
Absolutely. So we theoretically walked away with one of the top 2 interior linemen in the draft. Checkbox, bingo, right there. What did it cost us? A 3 and a 5. Did it dismantle our draft this year? Not at all. The 3 is from next year, right? We could always recoup that somewhere down the line. But take a look at this, Mark. We immediately have walked away with 2 defensive tackles, one being in the top 2. Chris Jenkins, I would argue, is in the top 5. So theoretically, we have walked away with 2 defensive tackles in the top 5. Our weakest unit now has 2 dogs with the potential that are just limitless. But more importantly, they are coming in with a work ethic that has been well documented. Chris Jenkins, his dad is Cullen Jenkins, played in the NFL. Everything they talk about this kid is the kid just is an relentless, unbelievable warrior. Sound familiar to you? That's exactly what we're trying to sort of keep in place on the D-line. All right, so we got 2 dogs. Jonah Ellis, nonstop motor off the edge. Pair him on one side with Byron Young. Right, here we go. Just brings a little bit more electricity to that pass rush. I think O'Shawn Mathis and Hoyt. Mark, look at that 4-man rotation. What do you think? O'Shawn Mathis, Hoyt, Byron Young, Jonah Ellis. Would you go to war with those 4?
Yeah, I mean, you never know for sure how a 3rd round edge rusher is going to work out on his rookie year, but I'd be hopeful.
All we want this kid to do is bring the energy, bring the pain, and contribute. That's it, right? Make his life a lot easier, Chris Shula. But we got to get players for Chris Shula to play around with because he's a linebacker coach, right? We got to get him those players that he can utilize. And by having those chess pieces, then he can scheme. Otherwise, his hands are tied. And shout out to Raheem Morris, because what he did, right, with a lot of not having all those chess pieces and coming up with a scheme that worked, shout out to you, Coach Morris, right? You earned everything that you have at this point, and good luck at it in Atlanta. And listen, K-Jax, the kid's from Alabama. He transferred over to Oregon. That's why he was doing so well in what we call the WAC 12, right, where you can't find any defense. Kyrie Jackson brought that mentality over to Oregon, right? So just kidding. I love the Pac-12. Just kidding.
It's the Pac-2, by the way.
Oh, yes, the Pac-2 now. So the Kyrie Jackson fit, I think, is just perfect for the Rams. I love the way they play. I think he'd be perfect for the Rams. I think he's a playmaker, brings that mentality. The depth Bo Limmer brings, tough, can play center and guard, right? The Rams have a lot of depth with Noteboom, but this just completes that sort of scenario. When you start taking a look at the depth chart, right, Mark, in your head, Bo Limmer, you could pencil him in on those 3 interior slots. Invaluable in the NFL at this point. Teron Hopper, just Puka power pick. Bo Limmer, by the way, is also a Puka power pick. Teron Hopper is just loves to play downhill, loves to shoot gaps, can make plays. I mean, I think would be a great fit in the Rams system. Opposite Ernest Jones would be very dynamic. I think he and Roseboom really complement one another. So in terms of their skill set, I think it's a great pick at 196. I mean, incredible value. Malik Mustafa, we've talked about him. He is just a physical player masquerading as a safety. He's a linebacker who runs well and is really strong, right? He's that type of safety. So there's always a spot for a guy like that on any team. Isaiah Davis is a very, very productive player for South Dakota State, an incredibly productive player for the Jackrabbits. And like I said, runs well inside, underrated player, best stiff arm in all of college football. And Cornelius Johnson, a player with great potential who just, for whatever reason, because of the way Michigan played football in their system, never got utilized the way that he probably should. Really a lot of undeveloped potential there. I think you talk about a player you're just gifting to the Rams and say, here you go, just cultivate this kid and watch what he can do. The kid can run, has good length. Can't ask for more in a developmental wide receiver.
And so what did we not get? I'm really happy with this draft, and you walk away with it and you're thinking, well, maybe it's still a question at backup quarterback long-term. I think we could figure that out, though. We did not draft a tight end, but we have two young tight ends that have proven they can play at the NFL level, Colby Parkinson and Davis Allen. We got two guys coming back from injury, and we got two guys on reserve futures contracts. So we're probably okay there, especially with the Rams offense, with the big wide receivers, how it kind of diminishes the importance of the tight end's role to some degree. We, let's see, what else did it? We didn't draft a tackle. And again, I'm okay with that in that, I think our offensive line's in pretty good shape. We have some flexibility there. Noteboom is still on the roster, which I think, provides a little bit of insurance. And I think maybe next year that would be something we have to look at is bringing in a tackle. Rob Havenstein getting older, and Alaric Jackson, hey, maybe he'll prove us wrong. And he's definitely a decent left tackle, and maybe he'll emerge as the real thing. And it's like, hey, he's going to be our guy.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's the case. And other than that, I think we did pretty good. Not a dynamic wide receiver addition, but again, our wide receiver room's not too shabby as we speak.
So a couple of late round flyers that we said we were going to keep. So we saw what happened with Luke McCaffrey, who started out as a Puka power pick and then just flew up the charts. So I think what happened with the player Bub Means, if we could see, Mark, is there any way, can you see when he was selected? I think because he also got a shout out. I think somebody was telling me from ESPN. So the draft engine might have caught up with us, Mark. So he's no longer a sleeper, I guess. So Bub Means from Pitt was one of the players that I would love to have walked away with. And for me, it was now that I recognize that he's not going to be available that late, that he might be that fifth round type selection. So he's definitely going up the boards. And two tackles in the late rounds that I think people should keep an eye out for are, first of all, this kid from South Dakota State, Garrett Greenfield. I really love the way this kid moves. Guy has great feet. They have him listed as the 195th prospect. I think Garrett Greenfield, he's got a ton of games under his belt, a lot of experience, can play both tackle slots, physical player. So that's one from South Dakota State. The other is Julian Pearl from Illinois. Julian Pearl from Illinois, I think, would be another really good developmental tackle late in the draft. So those are just two names for down the road. Above me, look at that, Mark. Julian Pearl, when I look at that, 156, so he's no longer a sleeper.
Yeah, there's a few guys. There's a few guys here that we talked about in recent drafts. Ray Davis,
Mason McCormick. Look at that. He's another one.
Muhammad Kamara, isn't that a guy you've talked about as well?
Yeah, from Colorado State, 6'1" edge rusher. Kenny Logan. Look at Kenny Logan flying up the boards. Drake Nugent, the center. They call him the undersized center from Michigan, right? He's flying up the board. So now we're starting to see the position start to even out a little bit more. So the term sleeper really is going to be most appropriate. I think people overuse that term. It only takes a week or two before people realize you know how to play football, right? And then all of a sudden you're no longer a sleeper. Look at Bartolini. Look how far he's moved up, Mark. Look at Vaki. He's actually held steady. His 40 time was a little disappointing for a lot of people, so I think he's dropped. Look at Kingsley from Florida, that center I really like. Look at him. He's flying up the boards.
Yeah, Vaki, you know, as much as we like him, he may have some limitations in coverage, right?
Yeah,
could possibly.
So listen, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody said to Vaki, listen, we're just going to leave you at running back because out of the backfield, there's nobody better. Vaki out of the backfield at running back, look what he did to USC, Mark. Look what he did to USC.
Yeah, even just a special teams guy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he was unstoppable against USC. I think he scored 3 touchdowns in that game, and it wasn't just all out of the backfield. He also ran the ball a ton. So I think this is a solid draft. I think moving down definitely worked in our favor. It gave us the player we circled, but it also opened up the door for us to take Jenkins. And when you put these two together, man, with the conductor, we also lost Jonah Williams, another contributor on the D-line, sort of an underrated player for depth. So now walking away with this and Bobby Brown, those 4 plus whoever with Dwan Johnson, that's 5. Maybe adding another low-cost street vet.
No, they did bring back Murchison yesterday.
Murchison, yep. So there we go. Another undersized player though. So maybe bringing in
Corey Durden still on the roster. I'm not
North
sure.
Carolina State nose tackle. Yeah, absolutely. So it's starting to look up. Now we got a little bit in terms of a little bit more. If you want to say dynamic sizzle up front that can really, really deliver a nice rotation so these rookies don't have to play all by themselves. But, you know, I'm really liking that at the top end of this draft from 99 up. Hey, Mark, you think, look at that, from 99 up, the fact that you think that's relevant right now? You think that's relevant?
Absolutely.
So once again, shout out to Aaron Donald and everything that he gave to the Rams. There'll never be another. But
you know, what's it say? You lose your starting defensive tackle, and the first thing you do is draft 2 more, hoping that combined they'll come close to replacing Aaron Donald. And they're probably not. That's a tough act to follow, but it just shows you how important that he was to the Rams. Because like we said a couple of weeks ago, defensive line was an afterthought for us. And now it's like, holy smokes, we got to add some people.
And it's the heart and the mindset. We added these 2 kids not just because of the way they, the physical attributes, but we added them because of their heart and their mindset. Very similar to what Aaron Donald brought to the table. What we can never replace is that work ethic, that relentless pursuit of excellence, and the way he delivered on the field. He was clutch.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to miss him. And hey, maybe he'll come back. You never know. If the Rams
Marshall Faulk called it. Marshall Faulk says he doesn't believe it. He says he's going to come out of retirement. He's going to pull a Brady and come out of retirement.
I would doubt it. I mean, he's only 32 years old. Maybe he'll get the hunger late in the season or next year. We'll have to see.
Come on back, 99.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, this is a great experiment. Next time, I think we should do something similar. Maybe trade up, but then try to trade back into early in the late in the 3rd round, or pick up a 4th round pick, or trade back and try to pick up a 4th round pick, something like that. We'll mix it up a little bit and see what happens over the next couple of weeks with free agency. I don't think a lot's going to happen, but maybe we'll be surprised.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Excited to run the mock, and really excited about the feedback from Rams Nation. Hope you enjoyed it. Keep an eye out for those Puka Power picks that are going to be coming out. And the draft is right around the corner.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, Paul, thanks a lot. I'll get back to watching some basketball here. And what time does Rutgers play? Oh, I'm sorry. That was mean. How is their basketball team? I don't even know. Do they were they in the hunt at all?
Listen, Scarlet Pride, baby. No matter what happens, we'll always be a Rutgers family. There we go.
Hey, we lived through it with the Rams Nation back in the late
Oh yeah,
2000s and the Jeff
can you
Fisher.
imagine?
So I know how you
But
feel.
I'll say shout out to UCLA. One thing, the greatest of all time, the GOAT, John Wooden.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really disappointed they had a down year. I don't think the recruiting went as well as they expected. I think some of the guys didn't deliver, but they'll be back.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Paul, thanks a lot out here, and we'll maybe do it again next weekend. We'll see how it goes.
That's right. Double barrel ram horns. Always at the
Okay.
ready.
All right, out here. Thanks a lot.